The first thing Brenn Sato noticed was the smell sterile, acrid, and way too clean to be comforting. He blinked against the harsh overhead lights as a shadow passed over him. Something cold and slick pressed against his forearm. Then pain, sharp and immediate. "Do not move," a voice barked. It was high-pitched but commanding, and from the look of the thing hovering over him, not meant for comfort. The alien had 4 arms and skin like mottled glass. Its eyes were fixed on the crimson stain spreading across Brenn's side. "You're bleeding too fast," the alien said. "This is catastrophic." Brenn winced, trying to sit up, but a tentacle pushed him flat again. "I said do not move. You are hemorrhaging." Brenn coughed, his throat dry. "Relax. It's not an artery. Just a gash." "It is a breach," the alien snapped. "Your fluids are exiting your body. This is unacceptable." "Yeah, that's what bleeding is." He looked down at his side. The wound was ugly, jagged, and wide across his ribcage. His uniform was soaked through. "Pass the tape." The alien hesitated. "Tape?" Brenn pointed weakly to his belt. A roll of military-grade adhesive bandage was clipped to it, still sealed. "That. Pass it. You require full fluid replacement. You need to be immobilized. Just give me the tape." Reluctantly, the alien handed over the roll. Brenn peeled it open with trembling fingers and began wrapping it around his torso, biting back a groan. The pressure helped. His left eye twitched from the pain, but he kept going. The alien watched in horrified silence as the human cinched the bandage tight and slumped back against the medpod. "This is nothing," Brenn muttered. "Just a scratch compared to what happened on Elker Ridge." "What happened on Elker Ridge?" the alien asked. "Don't ask," Brenn said. The medbay was a cacophony of strange instruments and blinking lights. Alien medics scurried like anxious beetles, casting furtive glances at the human. Brenn had been the first Terran assigned to the diplomatic convoy of the Virellian Coalition, and nobody, including himself, had expected it to go smoothly. "What's your name?" Brenn asked the alien closest to him. "I am Virel, lead biostabilizer." "Good. Virel, I need you to scan the wound. Make sure there's no internal damage. I can't afford to rupture anything important." "You should not be conscious," Virel said. "Your blood pressure is unstable. I've had worse hangovers." Virel blinked all 4 of his eyes. "That is not comforting." "Wasn't meant to be." Virel reluctantly activated a palm-sized scanner. It hummed faintly as it hovered over Brenn's side, casting a soft blue glow. After a few seconds, the results displayed in alien glyphs. Virel studied them, then turned to a second medic and murmured something. Brenn squinted. "Anything broken?" "No fractures," Virel said, still sounding unsure. "But muscle fibers are torn, and you have lost nearly a liter of blood." "All right then," Brenn said, trying to sit up again. The room spun. He lay back down. "You must remain here," Virel said. "You require a transfusion and protein synthesis solution." "I'll take the transfusion." Brenn closed his eyes, breathing through the pain. "But I'm not staying here all day. I've got a meeting with the Zalari delegation in 2 hours. You will not survive the meeting if you do not remain horizontal." "Then I'll sit." Virel turned away, waving to another assistant. A tall, pale alien with translucent skin brought over a nutrient bag and started prepping a line. Brenn watched them work, his gaze drifting to the observation glass on the far side of the medbay. Beyond it, the endless black of space churned with distant stars. He hated space. It was too quiet. But the galaxy wasn't going to negotiate itself. As the transfusion began, warmth crept up his arm. The pain dulled slightly. His thoughts cleared. "How did this happen?" Virel asked. "Training accident," Brenn said. "One of your security bots malfunctioned. Blades popped out where tasers should have been." Virel's mouth twitched. At least Brenn thought it was a mouth. "That device is not authorized for live drills. Tell that to the guy running the simulation. He panicked when it locked onto me. You should have been evacuated immediately." "I was. Right here." Brenn gestured at the medbay. "Now I'm patched up." "Crisis averted." Virel stared. "You are not patched up. You are actively leaking." "Not anymore." "That tape's better than half your gel packs." Virel shuddered. "Your species is unsettling." Brenn gave a dry laugh. "You're not the first alien to say that." A chime sounded across the medbay. A voice in distorted common echoed through the speakers. "All Coalition delegates report to Hall C. Hostile contact confirmed in orbit. Emergency protocols active." Virel flinched. That is not good. Brenn sat up again, slower this time, teeth clenched. Looks like that meeting's off. You cannot engage in any activity. You are injured. All the more reason I should be there. You think the Zalari care if I'm bleeding? They'll see it as weakness. You are weak, Virellian said. Right now, yeah. But I'll still walk in there before I let a war start over a scanner misfire. Brenn stood. The bandage was tight, and every breath stung, but he stayed upright. Where are my boots? You must be sedated. You sedate me, you start a war. You help me walk, maybe we don't. Virellian made a noise that could have been a sigh. He turned, retrieved the boots, and handed them over. Foolish human. Probably. The corridor outside the medbay was chaos. Alarms blinked red along the walls. Armed guards, both human and alien, rushed past, in every direction. Brenn leaned against the wall for support, then pushed off and forced himself forward. He passed a group of Virellian diplomats arguing about evacuation protocols. One of them stopped mid-sentence when he saw Brenn. You are injured. Yeah, I noticed. You should not be walking. Also noticed. He kept moving. Every step was an argument with his body. His side throbbed and his vision blurred, but the adrenaline helped. By the time he reached the command hall, he was sweating through his uniform again. Inside, the Zalari delegation stood tall and rigid. They were crystalline beings, all sharp angles and refracted light. At their head, Ambassador Virellian eyed Brenn with something between disdain and curiosity. You are wounded, Virellian said. Brenn nodded. Training accident. Your blood is visible. Is this a display? No, Brenn said. It's just inconvenient timing. Virellian tilted his head. Your kind leaks so easily. Yeah, and we still keep showing up to meetings. Virellian considered that. You have courage. Brenn exhaled. Let's call it stubbornness. The room settled. Tension eased slightly. The guards lowered their weapons. Later, back in the medbay, Brenn let Virellian reapply the bandage properly. He didn't argue this time. He was too tired. You should not have gone, Virellian said. I know. You could have collapsed. I didn't. You will recover slowly. Weeks, perhaps. Then I'll start now. Virellian looked at him for a long time. Your species is strange. Brenn closed his eyes. Tell me something new. The next morning, Brenn was still at the medical bay, propped up against a stack of pillows that smelled faintly of disinfectant and something vaguely citrus. The lights had dimmed to simulate planetary dawn, but the artificial daybreak didn't do much for the pounding behind his eyes. I said light breakfast, Brenn muttered, staring at the gelatinous bowl in front of him. The food wobbled when he breathed on it. It contains the optimal amino balance for rapid tissue regeneration, said Virellian without looking up from his tablet. He was hunched over a series of blinking charts, muttering in his native tongue. It's vibrating. It is alive. That's not comforting. You consumed raw fish at a diplomatic banquet 3 cycles ago. You described it as a decent Tuesday. Yeah, but that fish wasn't trying to climb off the plate. It cannot climb. It lacks extremities. Brenn pushed the bowl aside and swung his legs over the edge of the bed, only to be met by a sudden gravitational wobble. The floor didn't move, but his perception did, and for a second, the walls pulsed inward. He steadied himself with one hand and rubbed his temple with the other. Virellian didn't even glance up. Sit. You are not neurologically stable yet. Deoxygenation due to fluid loss has delayed cognitive recovery. Sounds like a long-winded way of saying I'm dizzy. You are also irritating. Glad we're back on familiar ground. The door slid open with a hiss, and a third figure entered. She was tall, with a ridged violet face, and wore a dark robe that shimmered like oil in sunlight. Her eyes, a metallic green, scanned Brenn with clinical detachment. Ambassador Sato, she said. Not sure I'm earning the title today. You walked into a weapons negotiation while actively hemorrhaging. That qualifies as a diplomatic maneuver in my records. Brenn squinted. Have we met? I am Virellian, tactical envoy from the Council of Peripheral Systems. I witnessed your intervention yesterday. Ah, were you the one who called for an orbital lockdown? No. That was someone less inclined to observe before reacting. Typical. She stepped closer, folding her hands. You destabilized the Zalari delegation, but they respected it. I've noticed a pattern. The more I bleed, the more aliens trust me. They assume it is a display of intent, a willingness to sacrifice. Funny. I was just trying not to fall on my face. You succeeded. Barely. Virellian finally looked up. He should not be speaking this much. Let me guess. Vocal strain impacts platelet cohesion or something? No. It just makes you unbearable to be around. Brenn grinned. Then I'll talk louder. Cyrilyn tilted her head. Your resilience is not a myth, it seems. Did you come to attend my bedside, or is there another crisis brewing? There is no crisis. But there is an opportunity. The Zalari have requested a cultural clarification session. They want to understand your species. Combat philosophy. Is that what we're calling it now? They are disturbed. Also intrigued. That's the usual sequence. I recommended you be the one to explain it. Brenn blinked. You want me to teach a class on how not to die? I want you to explain how your species tolerates so much physical trauma without initiating panic. Brenn picked up the gelatinous food again and poked it with a fork. We panic. We just do it after we solve the problem. That is not how most sentient species function. I've noticed. Virellian made a sharp hissing sound. He is not permitted to leave this room. I didn't say I'd go, Brenn said. I said I'd think about it. You are still producing plasma irregularities. Your blood has not stabilized. Can I walk? Technically. Then I can teach. Virellian turned to Cyrilyn. You are condoning recklessness. I am observing adaptation. You are romanticizing dysfunction. Brenn stood, slowly, carefully. He waited for the floor to stop tilting before he took a step. I'll need a translator, a chair, and something less sticky than this breakfast. Cyrilyn gave a small nod. The session is scheduled for the 4th cycle hour. You have 1 interval to prepare. Great. That gives me just enough time to regret this. She departed without another word. Virellian stalked over and began reattaching monitoring nodes to Brenn's arm. What's this for? Brenn asked. Live telemetry. If you collapse mid-lecture, I want to know why. Fair. 1 hour later, Brenn stood in the observation dome of Deck 7, now converted into an impromptu lecture hall. 5 Zalari dignitaries sat in a semicircle, their crystalline bodies refracting the artificial light into a kaleidoscope across the walls. A few other species sat in silence behind them, observers and recorders, all watching Brenn with expressions ranging from suspicion to scientific curiosity. He sat on a stool, one hand braced on his knee, the other holding a cup of something warm and bitter. Not coffee, but close enough. Let's get this out of the way, he began. Yes, I was bleeding yesterday. No, it wasn't a tactic. One of the Zalari raised an arm, which bent at angles that made Brenn's elbow ache in sympathy. Your species does not react to bodily harm with immediate retreat. Why? Because retreat doesn't fix the harm. Stopping the cause does. Another alien leaned forward. But the pain. We don't enjoy it. But we don't treat it like a command, either. A ripple of color passed through the crystalline audience, like light moving through a prism. Pain is a deterrent, said another. It signals the need to disengage. For us, it's information, Brenn said. It tells us where the problem is. Sometimes that's enough. A pause. Then one of the Zalari slowly extended a limb toward him, as if examining a zoo exhibit. Your blood loss was significant, yet you applied a binding agent instead of seeking full regeneration. Because I didn't have a Regan chamber. I had tape. You use what you've got. That is illogical. Welcome to humanity. Cyrilyn stood against the far wall, arms crossed, watching silently. Virellian sat beside her, staring at the telemetry on his tablet. Occasionally, he muttered something that sounded like a curse. Brenn continued. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every other day. Sometimes you had to keep moving even if you were hurt. The ones who didn't, well, you don't hear their stories. A Zalari leaned forward again. And you were not afraid? I was afraid of bleeding out before finishing my job. That's different. Another light pulse rippled across the group. Interest. Not admiration, but something close. You are not more durable, one said. You are simply more stubborn. Exactly. And this stubbornness is taught? No. It's earned. The room went still for a long moment. Then one of the Zalari stood. You will return tomorrow. We wish to test your reflexes under duress. Brenn blinked. You want to shoot at me? With non-lethal instruments. Define non-lethal. Statistically survivable. He sighed. I'll bring more tape. As the group dispersed, Cyrilyn approached. You may have started something. Let's hope it's not an interstellar first aid class. They believe your endurance is a weapon. It's not. They don't care. Back in the medbay, Virellian pulled off the telemetry sensors and scowled. You're destabilizing the entire coalition with gauze and sarcasm. Good. Maybe they'll stop trying to solve everything with plasma cannons. You need rest. I'll do that after they stop asking for demonstrations. You will not survive another session. Then make sure the tape's ready. Virel turned away, muttering. The alien assistant beside him whispered something in a language Brenn didn't know. It sounded like fear and awe tangled together. He leaned back, arms crossed behind his head. The pain was still there, dull and deep, but manageable. Somewhere in the mess of politics, anatomy, and wildly incompatible species, he was becoming something he hadn't planned on. A precedent. The lecture dome still pulsed faintly with residual light from the Zalari's crystalline bodies, even though they had departed over an hour ago. Brenn sat slouched on the same stool, legs stretched out, his shirt half unbuttoned to keep pressure off the healing gash across his ribs. Virel hovered nearby, waving a scanner over him with increasing irritation. You've displaced your clotting matrix, Virel said, not looking up. I leaned forward. You should not have leaned. I dropped my cup. Then leave it. It was still warm. Virel clicked his tongue, a sound somewhere between a zipper and a sigh. You are incapable of prioritizing survival. I'm very good at surviving. You just don't like how I do it. You treat triage like a social inconvenience. I treat it like something I don't have time for. With a disgusted flourish, Virel sprayed a burst of antiseptic mist over the wound. Brenn flinched. That stuff stings. It is not meant to soothe your sensibilities. The chamber door hissed open. A short, squat alien with skin like wrinkled leather shuffled in, holding a tablet nearly as large as its torso. It blinked at Brenn with 3 unevenly spaced eyes. You are human Brenn Sato? Unfortunately, I am Trolv. I log biomechanical anomalies for the Coalition's adaptation registry. You have been flagged 73 times in 2 cycles. That's got to be a record. It is. The next highest is an aquatic being who grew teeth in its lungs. I'm flattered. Trolv pointed at his tablet. You registered a decline in vitals, followed by immediate cognitive resilience, followed by movement against medical advice, followed by elevation of diplomatic status, followed by ingestion of unclassified protein compound. That last one was breakfast. It attempted to escape your tray. I caught it. You should not have eaten it. I was hungry. Trolv made a low chirping sound, which might have been laughter or distress. Your behavioral profile does not align with any known survival archetype. Maybe your archetypes need an update. Possibly. Or extermination, Trolv added blandly, tapping his tablet and wandering toward the door. Virel watched him leave. You are building a reputation. I've noticed. Not all reputations are strategic. Not all reputations are optional. Virel huffed and adjusted the bandage again. You ruptured a small vessel with that lecture nonsense. You will sit still for the next 4 hours. No arguments here. You will eat something solid. Something cooked. As long as it doesn't blink at me. Virel handed him a sealed ration pack. It had a picture of something that might have been poultry on the front, but Brenn didn't look too closely. He peeled it open and took a bite. Tastes like regret. It is nutrient-rich. Regret is irrelevant. Brenn chewed slowly, then gestured with the half-eaten ration. What's the Coalition going to do with all this? The interest, the scans, the questions. They're cataloging humans like we're a new species. You are a statistical outlier. You destabilize the normal curve. That's a polite way of saying we're unpredictable. It is also accurate. Brenn leaned back, careful not to tug the bandage. So what now? More tests? A dissect and learn session? I'm not volunteering for anything that involves clamps. There will be no more analysis, Virel said, closing his scanner with a snap. The Coalition has decided to classify your resilience as culturally emergent. Further probing is deemed diplomatically volatile. That's a fancy way of saying they're afraid to ask more questions. It means they no longer wish to risk insulting your physiology, or your species, or your adhesives. Brenn set the ration down and let his head rest against the wall. Finally, one decision I agree with. You will remain under observation for 22 more hours. I'm not going anywhere. You will not attempt another lecture. Not unless someone bleeds more than me. You will not attempt anything. Brenn gave a weak nod. Deal. There was silence for a while. Not the sterile kind, but the kind that came when there was nothing left to argue about. Virel folded his arms, watching the monitor tick down vitals that, for once, held steady. Brenn kept his eyes closed, breathing evenly. Eventually, Virel picked up the empty ration wrapper. You consumed all of it. Yeah. It is not palatable. I've eaten worse. That is not comforting. Brenn cracked one eye open. It wasn't meant to be. Veckrell's mouth twitched in what, from him, might have been amusement. Your blood levels are improving. The protein compound is effective. Told you. You stated it tasted like regret. Some regrets help you heal. Veckrell turned away, gathering his tools. You are stable. I will return in 1 hour. Brenn didn't respond. His breathing had slowed, the lines on his face softening into something close to rest. Veckrell paused, then dimmed the lights by a small fraction before stepping out. Outside the medbay, the corridor buzzed with quiet activity. Diplomats moved with less urgency now. The sense of emergency had passed, replaced by a lingering curiosity. Whispers followed Veckrell's path, words like resilient, volatile, and educational hazard traded with equal parts awe and distrust. But inside that room, under the soft hum of monitors and the faint scent of antiseptic, the human slept. His bandage held. The bleeding had stopped. And for the first time in 2 days, nothing needed fixing.